tips for nervous guests on Hollywood Squares. What do you give for nervous people?
Well, why would you get nervous, really? Now, I've asked you to do this show before, and I know you're busy. And we kept coming to you, and I said, hey, come on, Paul, drop on the show some night. You know, just come in and say hello.
I watched the show, and I think you're the greatest, and I don't know. It's that I've, you know, I'm on Squares 7 nights a week, and maybe if I guest on a show, that's 8 nights a week, and I think we're all worried about being on too much, and I just feel that Squares is so revealing, and, you know, but people constantly ask me why I don't, and I really don't know, other than I'm just absolutely scared to of coming out and being myself.
Oh, you know, come on now.
I usually, when I go out in the summer, the last 6 summers have gone out in a play, and I'm very secure
in a play
because I can hide behind the character. And this summer I'm going out as Paul Lynde, and I won't lie about it. I'm terrified, but everyone says I'm going to have a lot of fun.
Do you ever notice how much more ridiculous you can be when you get into a costume? I love to do pieces where I get in and play a sketch because you can absolutely go bananas, and it's not like you're doing it.
That's right. If they don't like it, it's not you.
They say the character didn't play well tonight, and you get away from it, and you talk about the character in the third person. Somebody will say, what do you like? I said, yeah, Art Fern character I love to do. And I remove it from myself, which is, I want to ask you something. How do you get away with the jokes you do on Hollywood Squares? You people come up with some of the wildest answers. We couldn't get away with it this time of night.
I don't know. You know, I'm going to do some of the my favorite questions and answers over the years on Squares, and a woman has evidently taped all of the dirtiest ones. I mean, or she has the dirtiest mind. I forget I had any. I didn't know we got away with them. Oh. And we were running them over the other night, and I just couldn't. I said, maybe she's reworded them, but it is, she taped them. I don't realize it at the time, but when I'm in a store, or like a Safeway or something like that, someone will yell, you know, the question. Well, maybe I said it 4 years ago, and I don't remember last night.
I saw one the other week. I think this might have been a repeat, and the question was to you. Peter Marshall says, Paul, can you get a pound of feathers out of a goose? And you said, I got him in there, didn't I?
I'm glad you remembered.
And I fell right off of the couch.
I'm glad you remembered.
Crazy show. How many of those have you done?
I'm going into my 10th year. I've been on it. Yes, I've been on it 9 years as a regular. The first year I was very insecure about doing it because, I don't know, yeah, I'm really a script man, and I like to know what I'm doing, and so the first year I would not become a regular, and it's just like, you know, when people interview me, like on the summer tours and so forth, I use your example a lot. You know, you weren't that hot the first year.
No, I was warming up to it.
I say it's experience, and I say, look at Johnny Carson. I said, watch how each year he just seems to get more fantastic, and I said, it's a word that, especially I tell young people that never put it down. It's called experience, and it
there's
shows.
No equating for it. I think, yeah, the first year I did the show, I was absolutely, I really didn't know which direction.
I was rooting for you, but you know, and
didn't know which direction to go with it.
But boy, I tell you, what you've done in the last years, it's unbelievable. You have no peer.
Hey, thank you. You know, that's not you. Thank you. Yeah. Now, when I introduced you tonight, Doc went right into an impression. Rich Little does you. You know, Rich makes his living imitating other people.
Do you know who does the best?
Who?
Rich Little's brother.
Rich Little's brother?
He did it one night on The Tonight Show. Rich was on the show and brought him out of the audience. And I really think it's the best I've ever seen. And it's the only imitation he does. Rich Little's brother. Which is amazing.
How did you develop another particular style? You have a style of delivery, you got a style of takes, which we all pick up a little here.
I don't know.
Over the years?
People ask me that over the years, and I think timing is what you're born with. I think that is your talent. I think it makes you distinctive. No one's like you, and that's God-given to you. And I prefer not to know what it is. You know, people say, do you believe in analysis and things like that? I do for many people, but I don't for performers. I think it should be a mystery.
It's like trying to analyze.
I don't think you should know yourself that well.
It's like trying to analyze comedy. There is nothing duller than to sit around with people and say, let's discuss why people laugh.
They laugh because they happen to dig your timing, and it coincides with theirs or something. Because you can't be universal. There are people that, you know, that can't like everybody. There were very few people working in the business. But I will tell you the funniest thing that ever happened to me in regard to a fan, in regard to what we're just talking about. We went with Hollywood Squares up to British Columbia, and we were out having fun during an evening in a local discotheque, and I was with Karen Valentine and I forget who else, but we were having a ball. And this man came over, and he really had one too many, and we had two, but we still weren't like him. And he came over and he said, are you Paul Lynde? And I said, yes. And he says, listen, promise me you won't move. I'll be right back. And he went on. And I said, I'll stay. I won't move. And he says, because my wife, I've got to bring her over. She just hates you. I've never had anything like that.
It's funny how they can give it to you and then take it back. And the same thing, just when you think you're sailing. It's like people come up to you. You ever get this compliment? I caught the show last night. And you sit there and you wait for some kind of accolade, or it was sensational, or it stunk. So you never know what you're reading. I saw you on the show the other night, and you go. They walk away.
It's like people looking back in your dressing room. You want liars. You don't want frank, honest people.
You want people to say,
they don't want to say, when they start out with, I think I know you well enough, and I just say, get out!
Yes, I'm a friend of yours, aren't I? You say, go away.
Go away.
I got to take a break. We're coming right back. Stay where you are. I found out you were not a particularly good, I don't know whether this is part and parcel of being a performer, that you were not particularly great in school either. I mean, you were not the valedictorian of the class.
I was real good in high school, and then in college, I don't know if it was cloudy or it was somebody's birthday, I didn't go to school, and it,
cloudy days are bad
I became very social, and I entertained a lot. And I would play that against the faculty and so forth, because I do alumni things and so forth like that for the school. But you're right right up to the closing of my college career. It was probably the biggest crisis of my life. Your grades go home first to your father, and you don't know what they are. And my dad called, and he couldn't be frank, and he said, "What the hell is V?" And when you're panicking, I said, valedictorian. What else? And so it was a snap course. It was one of those courses where everybody else in it was football players. And I think it was drawer arrangements or something like that. And
sock sorting and that type of thing.
Really snapped back on me. And I went to this professor who I thought had no humor. And he said, V is for visitor. He said, you've never been in this class. And I had to finally go. I went to everyone but the governor of Illinois, because my dad was already in the car on the way. Well, you don't tell him out on Deering Meadow with your, the no cap and gown, Dad, sorry. And he was on his way.
Well, they weren't even going to graduate.
No, absolutely not. And I went to everyone, and they started passing the buck and everything, and the dean of speech school would say, well, if you can get this person and sort of like that. So finally, God bless him, the highest authority, I did not know that, at a university is called the Student Senate. And they held a special meeting, and I'm not kidding him, my dad to this, that day never knew it. The ink was really wet on my diploma, really wet. But the Student Senate passed me the morning when I think the orchestra was playing. It was that kind of, but it's amazing what you can do when you have to do something.
Is it though?
Oh, I tell you, I would not take no. I had to graduate.
Yeah. What did you do right after graduation?
I went to New York. Yeah. Then, there was not that much television, and I played around a lot, I'm ashamed to say, and I lost my father, and neither one of my parents ever saw me do anything, but it's an awful thing to say, but I think my father's passing made me do something finally.
Really?
I had no more help, and it's amazing what you have to do when you have to do it. And I started writing, which I really didn't think I could write because I couldn't afford, to buy material. And I wrote a number and entered an amateur contest at number 1 Fifth Avenue, which is still down there. And it got me my first break, and luckily Leonard Stillman, which is magic, and it's great in those days when I was in New York. There were marvelous little showcases like that where you could showcase yourself, because you can't get an agent. And
you had all those little reviews.
They were marvelous, and that was what magic that happened for me. Leonard Stillman saw me do this number and put me in his first Broadway show.
How come it's been 23 years since you've gone out now in the concert field?
Mainly because of trauma, really. The last time I ever worked in a nightclub was the Versailles in New York, and I can talk about it because it's no longer there. I think it was in the Round Table and was something else. But it was one of the most expensive nightclubs, I think, in the world. There were no prices on the menus, and I think water was 85 cents. And most of the time when you were on, the police were there fighting with the customers because they would just scream, "I don't carry that much money on me," you know, because the bill could be $500 and $600. In those days, it's a lot of money today, but in those days it was unbelievable. And I'm not kidding you, I played there 16 weeks, 2 shows a night, and I bombed every performance. And the owner of the club, he would not fire me. I would go and plead with him. And there's a story that a lot of comedians tell around, but it's mine. It truly happened. One night I was doing the best thing I have, really, at that time, was the African monologue. And the people ringside, suddenly while I was in the middle of the monologue, got up and started dancing. And there's no music in my act.
See, that's a tip-off right there.
They just couldn't wait any longer. Really, it was incredible. And it was that way all the time.
Spivvy's room?
It was it was a penthouse club, and very, very end, when it was hot. Well, I closed it.
Closed Spivvy's?
I closed Spivvy's. I really did. I was the last person to perform there. And, you know, as I said, it was up on top of the roof. And Spivvy and I'd be sitting back in the corner all alone, and we'd hear the elevator, and she'd say, "Get your props, you're on." And I would get my props out, and it was just the elevator man. He was lonely and wanted to talk to us, or the landlord trying to collect the rent. It was just incredible. And, you know, Spivvy, when we did have people, like on the weekend, I would announce her after I was through, and she'd run in the John and lock herself in there till the club closed. She never would come on. She would as soon as the club closed. And Judy Garland and Martha Ray and Judy Holliday, they used to come in, and Spivvy would entertain all night long for them. But she would not for the audience. And finally, one night I went to work, and when I came, the piano was down on the sidewalk under the canopy, so I knew it was over.
And the elevator man was dancing. We'll take a break. We'll be right back. Stay where you are.